So people told me I should introduce myself and tell a little bit about my work, of my work at Daimler. Futurologist sounds a little bit weird, but it is very simple in case of mobility because your field of work is narrow. Everything with transportation, mobility, luxury, whatsoever, gender. So it spreads out, that's true. And the job in itself is a networked job. It's not a department, but you need a creative network at the company, and then you set up impulses, inspiration, develop ideas, and in a good way, in the best way, when what's happening then is that the other people in this network build stuff. Build stuff like if you Google research car Daimler, research car Mercedes, FO15. The FO15 was our first design and visionary prototype for autonomous driving. Yeah, and autonomous driving, well, you know that's a future topic for the car industry, for us, for all the people. And to give you an idea about maybe the time scale or what's the true work of people like me, is to give impulses in a time frame. So for the FO15, the autonomous car, I started in 2007. 2007, I visited the DARPA Urban Challenge in Nevada. I expected military stuff there, but what wasn't true. It was like a campus, like a university. Very nice people, and the technology was nice too. And then I got back to Daimler, Mercedes headquarters, Germany, and I said, okay, we will build mobile robots in the future. Then everybody hit me with everything they had. Yeah, because no robots, we built no robots, we are car, and so on, you can think of that. But 7 years later, then I was with Dieter Zetscher, the CEO, on a stage, and he drove in with an autonomous S-Class. But that's 7 years, you need that time. I needed that time. So this is always my job, a little bit to tell people maybe things they don't want to know in the moment, and inspire them and motivate them to do something about it, and do that with other experts too, with other creative people. And creative people, you find them everywhere, so that's a network thing. It's not label I'm innovation or something. You can find them truly everywhere, and you have to talk to them. That's the thing, and that's in short is maybe from what I've done education-wise. It was I'm a social scientist. That's one thing, but then the other thing, which is a little bit funny today to talk about, I'm a knowledge engineer. That was in the 1990s, artificial intelligence, about expert systems, and I wrote expert systems myself. That was cool in Lisp and in Prolog. So these two, this engineering stuff, the programming stuff, and the social science stuff together, I think that's a good idea to start if you try to make jobs like that. If you listen today to artificial intelligence community, it's a kind of a deja vu effect. The people tell the same stories about the experts, and they make systems from the experts, about the robots. You can look up in Google. There's a tool which counts the words in literature. Ngram. I guess it's Ngram. If you put in Ngram, you put robot and artificial intelligence, you will find in the late 1980s, 1990s, a hill like that, because that was a hype. And today the hype is the same. It's machine intelligence. Everybody is expecting robots walking inside, and talk to us. Totally anthropomorphic, totally wrong. So it's a kind of a deja vu, but it's a funny thing. And I thank you to listening.
Okay. To me. Well, a lot to explore there with you, Alexander Mankowsky. I would like to ask the second panelist onto the stage. Her name is Mirjam Pütz, Head of Disruptive and Strategic Programs at Deutsche Bank. Welcome to you.
Hi, and hello everybody. My name is Mirjam. I'm working in the Chief Digital Office at Deutsche Bank. And we are concentrating on 3 topics right now. First is delivering true digital customer experience. Midterm, it's definitely transforming our core business. And long term, as many do, is working on a new ecosystem. So I'm heading the Disruptive and Strategic Programs think tank, which is concentrating on our long-term vision, 2025 and beyond. And our goal is to find new business models for Deutsche Bank, which is not only in banking, but more than that, across many industries. So my method is screen, develop, share. That's how we work, basically. We have a lot of internal partners supporting us, which is our DB research department, for example, or the innovation labs in Berlin, London, and Singapore, and Silicon Valley, and our digital factory in Frankfurt. But also, we like to work with external partners. So these are startups, fintechs, of course, our MIT research cooperation. We closely work with Axel Springer Plug and Play, and also with the factory here in Berlin. So as you see, we try to really bring in different views and see what the future brings for us. I think we found some very interesting technologies where we build on new business models right now, and furthermore in the discussion, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. There'll be room to explore it all. Mirjam Pütz, thank you so far. Next we have Thomas Andrae. He is the founder of Linden Capital and Chief Strategy Officer of Factory Berlin. Welcome to you.
Hello, thank you for having. I think I don't need this because
it should work.
Right. It's
Let's
easier.
fingers crossed it does.
Good. Thank you for having me here today. My background is venture capital, largely out of Berlin and Boston, so I kind of live in between the two cities, which gives me a very nice comparison of the ecosystems. Basically, what's happening here in comparison to the US, certainly also in comparison to Silicon Valley, we're going to put some emphasis on this later, but of course there are still major differences in terms of what's going on this side of the ocean and on the other side of the ocean. But certainly also what you can see happening here is significant progress. In terms of really excellent founders you find here, great teams, and certainly Berlin as a hub in Europe that is more and more gaining shape and constituting. On the other side, certainly when you look at the financial area in terms of like how much capital is available to young startups, to companies in general, we're talking like 10x in the United States, more or less, compared to Europe. And this, of course, is a major difference when it comes to generating the next unicorn. That of course needs massive capitalization in order to get started. For example, compare Uber to, for example, Get, and look at Volkswagen investing 300 million in Get, and just one day later Saudi Arabia is investing 2.5 billion in Uber. So there are significant differences also from a cultural perspective that I clearly see. So when you, for example, put in contrast what Uber has achieved in context with what My Taxi achieved here in Europe or in Germany or in the DACH region. Basically, My Taxi stopped at the German border of regulations that are like 90 years old, our Personenbeförderungsgesetz, which is basically governing the rules how we can take people from A to B, while in just 4 years in America and in many other areas of the world, including London even now and Paris, Uber has become synonymous with taxi transportation. So when our lawyers get up from a meeting in Boston, they don't say anymore that they need a taxi, they say that they need an Uber. And from my perspective, traveling in between the two worlds, we need a little bit more of Uber and a little bit of like deregulation in order to demonstrate what those models are capable of. Just to add one little side point on that, just 2 weeks ago I was in San Jose, southern end of Silicon Valley, at A-Cube and Airbus Ventures, and they were talking about Project Vahana, which is public, so I can talk about it. Basically, it's single-person drones that you can command to the position where you are by the means of Uber. This may sound totally fascinating, to command a drone to where you are and then fly someplace else, I don't know, 60 kilometers away. But basically, they're just converging technologies. And when you look at the radicalism in the US, especially in Silicon Valley, how technologies are put together and put in place, and how those disruptive models that initially look disruptive aren't really disruptive if you count one and one together, I think we have a long way to go here in our ecosystem in terms of, on one side, people driving really radical ideas and people stepping above borders and boundaries. On the other side, certainly the whole area of financing.
All right, thank you. Thomas Andrae there, founder of Linden Capital. And now we move on to Amos Albert, our final panelist, founder and CEO of Deepfield Robotics. Your 5 minutes. You come over.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everybody. So I'm Amos Albert. I'm the CEO of the Bosch startup. It's a corporate startup which is called Deepfield Robotics. We are inspired to contribute innovative technologies towards a more sustainable farming, but of course we have also a mission which is to create new Bosch business. So we belong to the speedboats our CEO, Mr. Denner, is referring to, and which are refueled and fueled by the mother tank, Bosch. So my statement for today is ubiquitous connectivity is not a vision anymore, it is already reality, but actually it is also democratizing disruptive technologies. I will return to this statement at the end, but the topic of today actually is digital transformation. Challenge accepted, and yes, definitely the challenge is accepted within Bosch, but the mission is not yet completed. So actually Bosch is undergoing a transition process which is driven by the digital transformation, but this is a moonshot project. It takes a lot of time. It was in the 70s after the oil crisis when Bosch introduced the first time its 3S program, and that time the 3S standard for safe, clean and economical. So the German words for sicher, sauber and sparsam. But nowadays the 3S stands for sensors, software and services. And actually Bosch is a full liner in this regard meanwhile. So our sensors and our devices are getting connected. We have established our Bosch Cloud, and furthermore our Bosch IoT suite provides the functions in order to enable services. And we are active in all fields you may imagine. So we heard a lot of these fields already today. This is about smart cities. It's about connected mobility functions. It's about connected industry. Running here on parallel tracks, being leading supplier, but also a leading applier of these technologies. And this for my occupation within Deepfield Robotics, it's about smart agriculture. So why is this important? Well, while there is an ever-increasing world population which will reach more than 9 billion people by the year 2050, the resources, and in particular the natural resources, are limited. Let me give you some examples on this. So first, arable land per human has decreased by more than 50% within the last 50 years. Further, more than 70% of fresh water today is used in agriculture. And another argument is plant protection products like herbicides are getting more and more regulated and also less effective. And that's why we think agriculture is a prime example actually for the digital transformation, because agriculture consists of repetitive tasks which are required in a logic sequence, but the results depend highly on many uncertainties. Different soil conditions, different climate conditions, the climate change, etc. And here connectivity is actually the key, because it allows to close feedback loops, to improve the processes and to increase yield and quality. We have two product families within the startup. One is called Deepfield Connect, which is about measuring microclimate data on the field, which we then send to the cloud. We further process the data, we augment with weather forecasts, with satellite images, and then we apply artificial intelligence technologies in order to give recommendations to the farmer to improve the processes. And the second topic is about robotics, and the robotic system in this ecosystem can be considered as a mobile sensor and or actuator. Major benefit of a robotic system, it can each plant individually. And this is already reasonable today, for instance, in seed breeding or for selective harvesting of ripe fruits and vegetables or for selective weed control. So let me turn to the initial statement, why it is democratizing disruptive technologies, because democratizing means making something accessible to all. And the connectivity makes accessible to all artificial intelligence. And that's why it is democratizing.
Very interesting, Amos,
thanks.
Albert there. So each and every one of you has a lot to say and share on that particular issue. And I would now like to welcome your moderator, Teresa Tropf of Bitkom. Teresa, take it away.
Hi everyone, and thank you for your introductions. Now, like Mr. Albert already mentioned, the topic of our discussion is digital transformation challenge accepted. My first question to Mr. Mankowsky, let's take a look at the status quo. What is the current situation in the process of digital transformation in Germany right now?
Yeah, I would first say Negroponte, from founder of the MIT lab. He predicted for the now, it's beyond digital. Yeah, and as we heard about robotics is not digital. Robotics are physical stuff. Autonomous cars are physical stuff. So it's not about the digital transformation, but it's beyond digital. If you look at beyond digital, yeah, which is there, then it's about artifacts. Yeah, one point is artifacts. Yeah? Things. Yeah, the tech industry tend to call artifact things. Yeah? Things means, yeah, if you take the word literally, they don't know what that is. So we have two industries. We have the industry like we are, automotive, robots, whatsoever, building artifacts, not things. Yeah, things is weird. Yeah, true artifacts. Yeah. And we have the tech industry, they are more in software and in advertisement. So, and what we need today and what we are about to in this challenge, what we are doing now, we at Daimler now, we are on our way to invent the third form of industry. Yeah, it's not the tech industry. They have difficulties with things, obviously. Yeah, we, as a traditional industry, yesterday, 10 years ago, we had our difficulties with digital, we can say, and we now invent a third form. Yeah, it's about talents and blind spots and so on. Yeah, try to remove the blind spots and try to enhance your field of work, and then we are experimenting very strongly in this third form of industry. It's not industry 4.0, yeah, it's something else. And that's a challenge. That's not a challenge, digital transformation. Digital transformation is yesteryear. That's it.
Okay. Mrs. Pütz, the digital transformation is
yesteryear.
is particularly disruptive in the financial and banking industry, where lots of fintechs are coming into the market. How much time is left for the banking industries to manage the digital transformation?
Let me start this way. Fintechs can be competitors or partners, right? So if we look to the customer interface, for example, and fintechs concentrating on that, then we might see them more as competitors because we don't want to give up the customer interface, definitely. But a lot of fintechs are concentrating to make products, services better, smarter, have great technologies. So they are definitely partners for us. And as fintech is more tech than fin from our point of view, so a lot of great technologies come up. And we also see that fintechs also change their business models more from a B2C to a B2B business model. So they are actively looking for cooperations with banks. That's what we feel right now. And what you might know is that we have more than 10 cooperations with fintechs and startups right now, because we definitely see them as partners in most of the cases. And we have brilliant examples. I just got the message that we have a huge go live today. So we are working with Figo, for example, on a multi-banking aggregation, or D-Swiss on an e-safe, Yovoto on crowdstorming tools, etc. So a lot of fintech startup partners where we have the chance to give them access, but they are also of great help for us. And then we also have more established partners, right? So I was talking earlier about Axel Springer or the Factory Berlin, where we also look for new challenges and opportunities. As soon as you are actively working within this ecosystem, I think we are right spot on in time, because we try to involve as many partners as possible and work on a very collaborative path.
Okay. Mr. Albert, Bosch, as a traditional player, is also investing in startups to keep update, to be up to date. Is this Bosch model in investing like startups like Deepfield Robotics a prototype for other traditional business players? What do you think?
I think there are many different facets, and all other companies are running similar models. So what we encountered a couple of years ago is that there are very good ideas or technologies available within the company which had not found their way to commercialization, not to the business unit, to commercialize it. And retrospectively, I would say you may look at three dimensions: the customer or business model, the technology, and the market. And whenever there was more than one of this dimension new, it was not possible to transfer it to a business unit. For good reasons, they found reasons why it's still immature and unclear, and they have ideas for other activities. And that's why we have established this startup platform, to give it a try and actually to combine the best from both worlds. So being flexible and agile like a startup, but on the other hand also to make use of the existing technologies, competences, market accesses, the brand of Bosch. It is run as a 100% Bosch company, but a completely detached legal entity, as a so-called basic rule company, which means not all Bosch regulations apply to us, which is good. So there are good regulations for 375,000 employees, but this does not fit to a flexible and agile unit. And actually we behave like a startup. Explorative market testing in early stage, not developing 3 years and then test the market, but by iterated with the customer. Whether it's a blueprint, I don't know, because so far there is no exit. We started this end of 2013, beginning 2014. But we are now approaching also the first exits. But generally, I would say that there cannot be a blueprint for the business development. Otherwise, there would exist only one book which describes it. It always depends on the market you're looking at, the technology, etc. And then more or less interlinked activity is required with the mother company. So there are some patterns which are good practices, how to measure the maturity level with respect to the market, technology, resource organization, but no real blueprint for business development.
But that's what I meant with the quest for the third form.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one example. The quest for the third form of industry, the new industry. Yeah, that's the one example, I guess. But that's quest. Yeah.
Mr. Andrae, your business is also about startups. You are, as an investor, searching all the time for young companies to invest. Where do you find them, and how do you find them?
Well, of course, finding those companies that you invest in it's a hugely network-based endeavor. So basically it's about talking to other venture capitalists, to business angels, to people who are in that industry for a while. Certainly you have to concentrate on your sweet spots. I mean, I'm not investing kind of across the board. For me it's deep tech, machine learning, artificial intelligence, plus 2 or 3 other areas that I'm also addressing, like consumer internet or advanced food and nutrition, but my main home turf is deep learning, machine learning and AI. And in this case, there are certain firms out there in the world, some here in Germany, but certainly most of them either in Boston, New York or Silicon Valley. And just for lunch today here at Potsdamer Platz, I met somebody who is running a pretty large venture fund out of San Francisco. So you talk to those people, you exchange ideas, new thoughts, new streams of development, new applications for this technology. And so it's about being at conferences like this one, but also internationally, like in Israel or in the United States, to basically network with the right people in order to then figure out how you place your bets. Which means that on one side, certainly, we are looking at like so-called moonshot ideas that may only substantiate in, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, and that may constitute a new unicorn. It's kind of the art and science of our business to discover those unicorns early on and to get a sense for people and ideas in order to figure out whether this can really develop substance over a certain amount of time. So very rarely I'm approached by people who tell me, hey, I have this idea, why don't you go ahead and finance it because it's just the next big thing. That's usually not working. What works well is to talk to entities that you know sometimes for 10 or even 15 years, people that you trust, and that invite you to participate in their deals and vice versa. And this networks you more and more and more into the community. And after a certain amount of time you stand for a certain like investment pattern, also whether you're early stage or mid stage or later stage. Then at a certain point in time you also have to decide whether you take in external capital, grow it larger, or whether you still want to be basically the only one responsible for those decisions, which has always its pros and cons. Just for like 2 or 3 points behind that, for example, at a KPMG event here in Berlin just about 2 years ago, I ran into a founder that at that time wasn't looking for money. His idea was like running pretty well. He was on a pretty good growth curve. But then I was able to connect him because I got intrigued about his idea. I was able to connect him to prospective clients. And suddenly became into a conversation. And he said, well, Thomas, I'm planning for like within the next 9 months or so my next round. Why don't you participate? And also I could use somebody like you on my advisory board. So for me also, it's not only about networking with the other VCs, it's also certainly about networking with companies like Deutsche. Where actually Deutsche just started using the technology that one of my portfolio companies has developed. So it's about being very active in the network. It's about also driving opportunity for the companies you're invested in terms of developing new business. And not only here in Germany or in Europe, but certainly also international. Because when you have a great idea that has so-called unicorn character, you have to grow it fast and make it prominent so also people in North America know about it and buy into the idea. And that's the whole challenge, because if you have a great idea, other people will try to copy this idea. So in the end, it's all about getting to the right level of financing in a pretty early stage. That's something that is not too easy to achieve here from Europe. So for the most part, I encourage my portfolio companies to take the step over the Atlantic Ocean initially by finding investors in either the UK or North America, but then also certainly rather fast opening up an office in Boston or Silicon Valley in order to also be present over there. Because if you don't get on the radar of the large VCs in America, you'll never ever grow a unicorn. It's just impossible from here. And so I'm telling my founders, build this bridge, build it quick, and make sure that you are on the radar of those large firms in America.
Okay. As startups in Germany often complain about the basic conditions here in Germany. What is done on the political playground for founders in Germany to improve the situation for startups?
Well, there are lots of programs out there. You can receive like I don't know, 20% of your investment here in Germany you get as a subsidy from the Bund here in Germany. But those are all very small programs, and they don't really like spur or drive the ecosystem. I think much more needs to be done, like for example in Israel, where you can either to an amount of 50% or even to some cases at 100% deduct your investments in early stage companies from your taxes. That could be an idea. But in the end, what needs to happen here, and this is clearly addressed to our Mittelstand here in Germany, so companies that have succeeded really well over the past 65, 70 years in our country have made quite some money and have really like proven what entrepreneurship means, I would also be asking those companies to take a look at what's happening out there and to go and figure out a strategy how they could invest in those new ideas. Because there's so many great people out here that deliver excellent ideas. A company like Relayer, for example, which is an IoT, started here in Berlin, but unfortunately they did not receive any funding from people like Bosch or Siemens. They received funding from Kleiner Perkins out of Menlo Park in California. Next round, Google Ventures, and then they're gone into the United States. So this company will not generate any relevant mark here in Germany anymore. They will move to the United States. And if we do not find any kind of like instruments here that allow for those companies to grow to an A stage or even B stage financing north of 50 to 100 million, and those instruments are just not available here. If this is not happening, those companies will continue to develop here, but eventually they will move to the US and then they will be bought by players like GE or Boeing or other large American corporations. So that's a significant risk, and if we do not do something about that rather soon, this will not change. And so there's a lot to do on the political side, but from my perspective, and that's a pretty harsh statement, I know, but our politicians don't really understand what's going on.
Okay. Mr. Albert, maybe you as a CEO of a corporate startup, how do you see the situation and what could be improved?
Sorry?
What could be improved for the startups in Germany, you as a CEO of a corporate startup?
Okay, it's a bit detached from typical startups, yeah, because we belong to Bosch. We are a 100% Bosch company. We have not shares in the company, so the employees, but also the risks are not there. So what is important, I think, and also in our case, it's the interlinkage with other participants in the market. So we have the Bosch internal business unit, but as well we are cooperating with many other stakeholders in the business. So agriculture is new to Bosch, although we have more than 1 billion revenue in this market with the components and hydraulic sensors and so forth. But it's completely new, and to have the right understanding of the market and the customer needs, you need to collaborate with the people in the market which know the market in a very interlinked manner. And so bringing startups together with companies which are already in the market, smaller companies but also larger companies, I think this is fruitful. Okay. You know, not to run in the wrong direction.
But Mr. Mankowsky, it isn't just the framework, it is also the people. And the more revolutionary the changes are, the more people feel less certain about their own economic situation and their very own situation. So how do they get more confidence in the future?
Yeah, you have to bring good situations for the diversity of people. Yeah, there was a research in Japan. They asked young people, would they prefer Silicon Valley style, working environment, or a very traditional Japanese, and it was 50-50 the result. 50-50. Half of the young people they wanted to have an office with a door and everything like that, do what the what the boss says, and the other one want the freedom. That is typical. You need the people to have to give them their diversity. And the other thing, that's one thing. And the other thing is what I discuss very often with people is that they should look at their own talents. Everybody has talents. Or is doing something. But now we have the opportunity or the challenge, whatsoever what you mean, is to separate these, what you can do, into talents you like to develop and things which you like to avoid. I always often tell them, what is boring at your work? And then they laugh. And I said, okay, what's boring is good for robots and for AI and whatsoever. Just separate it, put it on a page, this is boring, and the otherwise this is not boring, this is me. And then the people start to react, and try to and start to say, okay, these are my talents. I like to do that. I love to do that. What can we do to make that better? And what can we do to get rid of this repetitive and boring stuff? This is a very, very simple thing. Everybody can paint that on a screen or on the paper. You don't need to be a scientist to do that. Just watch yourself and say, okay, my talents are difficult enough. Okay, I know that. But maybe a partner is helpful. But then you are on your way.
Okay.
It's very simple.
In the banking sector as well, it doesn't just count to have the best technology, but you also have to engage with the people. So who will win the banking client of the future?
I mean, as I said before, I do a lot of the screen work. So we talked a lot to customers and non-customers. I think it was more than 6,000, and we do a lot of screening of the markets. So we went to 17 metropolitan areas and we're looking for what is the banking of the future definition right now with others. And then for us, that was interesting to see that we definitely, and you all know that we came from an analog time and now see a lot of digital moments, a lot of touch screens, etc. But the future from our point of view is the combination of both. So bringing that together, it's like a time of fusion, I always call it. So bringing analog and digital together, because underlying technology is very, very important and it helps us a lot, but still the customer of the future or our clients really want to have somebody talking to them when they have more complex topics. So maybe you saw that last week we launched our Quartier Zukunft here in Berlin. That is our new customer experience store. And everything what we defined went into this concept. So I always say as digital as necessary, but as human as possible. Because when people really come to this experience store, they want to get more of that. Otherwise, they can just bank online on a sofa on a Sunday. But if they really walk in, then we have to deliver more. And the concept of that store is innovation, of course, community, because we want to create a community with our customers and really engage them much more than before, inspiration and coaching, because the advisor of the future from our point of view is a finance coach who really goes on an eye-to-eye level with the customer into the future, and that's much more than thinking about today's products. It's not only financial, but it's near and beyond banking, as we call it, much more as a life advisor. So we try to do that in the store physically, but also in the combination, giving the customer access, digital and analog.
Okay. Mr. Andrae, you invest not only in technologies, but also in founders, in visions, in ideas behind the technologies. So what is the typical German startup founder like? And what is maybe still missing in comparison to American founders from your perspective?
Well, there's not too much of a difference. As per the fact that if I talk to founders in Boston or in Silicon Valley or here in Berlin, you'll find highly determined people that want to achieve a goal, that have radically new ideas, great thinking, a lot of power, and all the other ingredients a good entrepreneur needs. So there's not that much of a difference. The point being that in order to develop your idea, you need a certain foundation or backbone that allows you to drive your idea forward. Here in Berlin, this is it's getting better and better and better every day. There's more funding available, especially early stage. That's not really a problem anymore. There are companies here in Germany or in Europe that are seeking for new ideas and that are also willing to take higher risk in terms of working with startups. When it came to Co-Brainer, you had the option to pick IBM Watson, but you didn't, which I really admire, by the way, because the other solution, also from my perspective, was a better fit and is addressing pretty much what you're looking for. So, but still, you're betting on a company that's just out there for 2 years. So who tells you they'll be around in like 2 more years? But this level of risk-taking is also happening here. The issue is, as I said before, when it then comes to raising your A round, which for a larger idea is anywhere between 5 million to 100 million, sources of financing are becoming more and more scarce over here. So those companies then in the end need to move to the United States, at least with some part of their operations, in order to be able to attain financing at that level. And that's something that needs to be addressed here. I think the government cannot really play a role because we're talking about substantial amounts of money. The ecosystem needs to grow by itself. And as I said, it's getting better and better, but still we're lacking people that do that over here. So people then tend to move again to the US, and many great founders from Germany then tend to meet in some lab in Boston or some basement in San Francisco where they continue to develop their ideas. And I'd really love to keep those people here in order to keep working on their ideas here with partners like Daimler or Bosch or Siemens or others. But that's something that is not really happening.
Okay. Looking at my watch, I think we have to close in a minute, so maybe one last question to maybe all of you. Well, the title was Digital Transformation Challenge Accepted. Was there something like a key experience where you first realized, okay, digital transformation and digitalization has the potential to change my life, and I can contribute to shape this process?
In the late 1980s, yeah.
Okay.
Starting.
And can you give us an
So
example?
it's very simple. That started with expert systems programming, then with Netscape. As an intellectual, I like to read. Yeah, and it was very difficult under Helmut Kohl. You know, maybe the older ones remember that. It was impossible to get true sources. Yeah, English literature very difficult to achieve. And then I could get that. That changed my life. And later on, I could program that myself. And well, I automated some knowledge management systems for myself. That was very cool. So it changed my life. I don't watch television. No need for that since 20 years. Yeah, changed my life. It's possible through digital.
Yeah. Just going back to the point about the differences in between what we have here in Germany and in the US. If you look at, for example, MIT, roughly 70% of the people that are leaving MIT as PhDs or master students or finished master students, 70% of those people go work for venture capital financed companies, which is a huge difference to what we have here in Europe, or especially in Germany. Because when I kind of look at the RWTH in Aachen, one of our famous engineering schools, I still think that 90% that leave RWTH this year still think that for the next 20 years they're going to be working for Daimler. And that's something that needs to change. People need to become more entrepreneurial. Just about 4 weeks ago, I was participating in the first semester inauguration ceremony at MIT, and they had Larry Page and Sergey Brin of Google talking about how they set up Google in front of 2,000 MIT first semester students. And after that, people left and thought, hey, this is something that I also can do myself. And this is just not happening here.
But you're encouraging that from Daimler and Startup Autobahn. You can Google that, Startup Autobahn in Stuttgart.
It's happening, just the extent.
Yeah, the extent is different, yeah. Sure.
Okay, thank you all very much. And if there are any open questions, our speakers will be available at the speakers corner right over there. And thank you very much.
Danke, danke.
Okay.